He sat in the living room trying to read. He'd made himself a whiskey and soda at his small bar, and he held the cold glass as he read a physiology text. From the speaker over the hallway door, the music of Schönberg was playing loudly. Not loudly enough, though. He still heard them outside, their murmuring and their walkings about, and their cries, their snarling and fighting among themselves. Once in a while a rock or a brick thudded off the house. Sometimes a dog barked, and they were all there for the same thing. Robert Neville closed his eyes a moment and held his lips in a tight line. Then he opened his eyes and lit another cigarette, letting the smoke go deep into his lungs. He wished he had time to soundproof the house. It wouldn't be so bad if it weren't that he had to listen to them. Even after 5 months, it got on his nerves. He never looked at them anymore. In the beginning, he'd made a peephole in the front window and watched them. But then the women had seen him and started striking vile postures in order to entice him out of the house. He didn't want to look at that. He put down his book and stared bleakly at the rug. Hearing for Clark Knocht played over the loudspeaker. He knew he could put plugs in his ears to shut off the sound of them. But then that would shut out the music too. And he didn't want to feel they were forcing him into a shell. He closed his eyes again. It was the women who made it so difficult, he thought. The women posing like lewd puppets in the night, on the possibility that he'd see them and decide to come out. A shudder ran through him. Every night it was the same. He'd be reading and listening to music. Then he'd start to think about soundproofing the house. Then he'd think about the women. Deep in his body, the nodding heat began again, and he pressed his lips together until they were white. He knew the feeling well, and it enraged him that he couldn't combat it. It grew and grew until he couldn't sit still anymore. Then he'd get up and pace the floor, fists bloodless at his sides. Maybe he'd set up the movie projector, or eat something, or have too much to drink, or turn the music up so loud it hurt his ears. He had to do something when it got really bad. He felt the muscles of his abdomen closing like tightening coils. He picked up the book and tried to read, his lips forming each word slowly and painfully.